Hello there everyone, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make my pinafore dress. The first thing you need to do is to refer to the description underneath this video because it gives you all the information you need prior to beginning knitting about choosing loom and how to work out how many pegs you need to cast on and all the other prep stuff. So in this video I'm just going to cover the actual knitting of it. Okay, so if you've done everything you need to do, we're ready to begin knitting, and here we go. So take your yarn, make a slip knot, secure it onto your first peg, and E-wrap all the pegs that you need to cast on. This will be peg 1, 2, 3, and however many pegs that you need to cast on. Go around every one. When you reach your last peg that you need to cast on, turn the peg, bring the working yarn round to the front of the pegs like this and lay it across, and then knit the loop that's on the peg over the working yarn. This is our flat stitch cast on and will give quite a nice tight cast on at the end. So work around the whole loom, keeping the working yarn at the front, and knit off the loops that are on the pegs all the way around to the start. Okay, so when you've finished your cast on, we're now ready to begin row 1, and the first 2 rows of your pinafore are going to be ribbed stitch. This is just a tiny bit of ribbing just to make sure that the dress doesn't curl up at the bottom. So to do the rib stitch, we're going to do one knit, one purl all the way around. So the first peg is a knit, so you're just going to wrap your peg like that and knit off. To do the purl, which is the next stitch, you bring your working yarn to the front, lay it below the loop that is already on your loom, put your hook down, scoop up the working yarn and make a new loop like this. Take the old loop off the peg and put the new loop on like that. Then the next one is a knit, wrap, knit, then a purl to the front like this, scoop up your working yarn, make a new loop, take the old one off and put the new one on, then a knit, and you carry on like that all the way around. Knit 1, purl 1, right the way to the end of the row. When you've completed your first row of knit, purl, you're going to repeat that going back the other way. So always keep the stitches the same as you did on the first row. So if you ended on a knit, you will start on a knit this time. If you ended on a purl, you will begin on a purl this time. I ended on a purl, so I'm going to take my yarn to the front and purl this on the way back, and then knit, and then I'll purl, and you'll just repeat the exact same thing all the way back to the start. Okay, I've completed my 2 rows of ribbing, and that's all the ribbing we're going to do for this dress, and we're now ready to begin working on the main length. Now, if you attached yarn markers, as I said in the description like I have, you're going to work first to the shorter of the 2 markers. If you didn't attach yarn markers, you're going to knit the length from the underarm down to the hem, so basically the hem to the underarm, because we're working from the bottom up. So yeah, we're going to work to the shorter of the 2 lengths that you took. I just want to remind you, I mean I did put it in the description, but this dress is made exactly the same way whether you're making a tiny little one like I am or an adult size one. I'm just making this small one just for demonstration purposes, but it's made in exactly the same way. Okay, so we're ready to begin the main knit pattern, and we're literally just going to E-wrap. So we're going to E-wrap and knit each row until we get to the shorter of the 2 measurements that we took. And we are going to knit the first peg, so we're going to wrap the first peg like that, and then E-wrap all of the other pegs right the way to the end of the loom. On each end you'll just wrap the first peg around, just take the working yarn back to the front, and then E-wrap all of the other pegs like that. I've got a knot in my yarn there because I've got another ball attached, but we'll ignore that for a minute. And then you just knit off. Oops. Knit them off like that, all the way back to the start. And we're going to keep doing that back and forth. It's really easy until you reach the shorter of the two measurements. So your hem to underarm measurement. Just E-wrap back and forth. So I've reached down to the end of my marker now. There you see, this is the shortest marker, so this is the underarm to the hem measurement. And we're now ready to begin working on our decreases. And if I show you the one I've already, the side of the dress that I've already knitted here, you can see. So we've worked up to here, and we're now ready to begin working on these little decreases each side up to the top of the dress. So the way that we're going to do that is, first of all, you need to understand that you're now working up to the second of your two markers. So we've done this one, now we're going to work to this second marker, and we're going to do that by decreasing each side. So go to the side that's got your working yarn on it. For me, that's this side here. And we're going to remove the loop from this first peg over to the peg next to it. Tug. And then we're going to go to the other end, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So on our flat panel, we're going to remove a loop from each end and put it onto the peg next to it. And now all you're going to do is knit as before. So we're going to go round our first peg, then E-wrap, and knit all the way round. I'm having problems here, I'm getting tangled up in my knitting. I'm going to back to the first peg and E-wrap all of them. And what you're going to do is, these pegs that have got two loops on, you're going to treat this as one loop and knit them both off at the same time. Alright. All the way around. So you're going to knit those off all the way around, and when you get to the last peg on the other side, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to treat those two loops as one and knit them both off at the same time. So I've come around to my last peg, and as I said, I'm going to knit those off as one. So we've made our first set of decreases. Now we're not going to decrease this time, we're going to knit back to this peg. Always make your decreases when your working yarn is at the same side of the loom. So in my case it's this side, it might be this side for you, but always make sure that you're working yarn. So if it's here, I know that I've just got to basically push these down, E-wrap and knit back to the other side. So I shall do that. Okay, so I've knit back and my working yarn is now back over this side, and so I'm going to make another decrease, and we're going to do exactly the same thing again. Lift this loop off of here, move it over to the next peg, go to the other end, lift this loop off and move it over to this peg, and then just wrap and knit off your pegs again, and then do the same thing. Bring your working yarn back to the same side, lift the loops off onto the next pegs, wrap and knit, and you're going to keep doing that until your work reaches the second of your two markers, and when it reaches that point you're ready to cast off. So come back when you finish this bit. Okay, so I've done all of my decreases up to the bottom of my second marker, and we're now ready to remove our work from the loom. So the way that we're going to do this is using a crochet hook, and we're going to go to the end that has the working yarn, so here, and we're going to remove that first loop from our loom, and then we're going to go to the next peg and we're going to remove that one from the loom, and we're going to pull the second loop under the first, and then we're going to take our working yarn and we're going to pull up a loop and pull that through the loop that's on the hook, and that's our first one. Then we're going to go to the next peg, pick up the loop, put it on, pull it through, get our yarn, pull up a loop and pull it through, and we're going to go all the way around the loom doing that. When you get to the last loop on your loom, pull that up there, pull it through as before, remove your work from the loom, then cut your working yarn, pull the working yarn through the last loop, and you can see that you've finished off the side of your dress, and we're now ready to join the two sides together. Okay, so when you have finally knitted up both sides of your dress in exactly the same way, you're ready to go on to assembling it. Now we're going to seam the sides together before we make the straps. So you end up with your two sides of dress. Now you can seam them in any way you want. If you want to do an invisible seam, then you'd obviously have the wrong sides facing each other and seam it that way, or you can do a whip stitch. I've done a whip stitch and I've already done one side here, as you can see. You place the right sides of your dress together, match them up all the way around this, and what you're going to do is you're going to seam from the bottom of the dress all the way up to the point where the decreases started. So you want to put stitch markers on both sides so you know how far you've got to go up, and then you're just going to whip stitch all the way up that point. So you will need to grab yourself a tapestry needle here and put the bottom together like that, and just grab through those bottom stitches facing each other all through. Don't worry about the tails, we can deal with those afterwards and just weave them in. And then I tend to go through the same stitch again, and as I go through I just catch this loop, put my needle through it like that, and that knots it nice and tight at the bottom, so we've got our needle in. And then all you do is make sure that you keep these two pieces, because they tend to roll slightly, so make sure you've got them unrolled, match them up, and then catch the matching stitches on each side, so the side seam on both sides, just pull it through, and then just go all the way up the side of your dress, whip stitching them together like that. Just match them up. Pull it too. And when you get up to the top bit here where you put your stitch marker, do the one final stitch and do it as when you joined it at the beginning. You put your needle through and then put your needle through the loop and catch it as it's going, and that will form a little knot at the top and secure it. So you want to go all the way up the side of your dress, seaming this together. Okay, when you get to the top here and you've gone all the way through and you've made your little knot at the top, all you want to do is take your needle and just slide it through these side stitches here and pull it through just to weave in your ends there, and then you can cut that off. And I've got some other ends here that need weaving in, but we'll do those afterwards. And then you do the same with the bottom. You get these little end pieces and just weave them in down the side seam with your needle just to get rid of them. Okay, so when you've done that, you can turn your dress back in the right way. So you've got all these strands at the top, but we'll deal with those afterwards. Little shake there. You can see we have our little ribbing at the bottom, all the way up. We've got the decreases here, and this will be where the arms will go, in there. And so the final step is to add the straps for our dress, and that's really, really easy. So I've already made one here, and the way that we do this is we can take our loom. I just use this little one here, and cast on as many pegs as you want for the width of the strap that you want. Now obviously the more pegs you cast on, the wider your strap will be. I actually cast on 4 pegs to make this, and I'm guessing it's just under 1 inch wide looking at it. And what you do is you cast on your pegs the same as you did when you made the dress, however many pegs you want. So as I say, I did 4, and then you E-wrap and knit back and forth. Okay, so as I say, I've got my 4 pegs cast on, and we do the straps a little different to what we do the dress. So in the dress we knitted the first peg rather. In the strap we're not going to, we're going to slip it. So when you've got your yarn here, we're going to ignore this peg, and we're just going to E-wrap and knit all of the other pegs like this through to the end. And you're going to do that on every row. You're going to ignore this first peg and just E-wrap the other pegs, including the last one, and knit them off and push it down, and keep going until the strap is as long as you want it to be. And just bear in mind to keep it a little shorter than you think you need it, because obviously yarn is stretchy and your strap will end up being way too long. Otherwise, if you just make it the length you think you need it. So what you need to do is make it slightly shorter to allow for the stretch. So keep going until the strap's as long as you want it, and then we're ready to sew the straps onto the dress, and our dress will be finished. Right, when you've come to the end of your strap, I've made mine as long as you want it. You're going to do a crochet cast off as you did before, but before you do that, you're going to take the loops from the last pegs, remember these were our slipped pegs, and move them over to the pegs next to it. Do that on both ends, so then you end up with just 2 pegs with loops on, and then you're just going to knit these off like that. And then we're just ready to crochet these off. So do what you did before basically. Take that loop off there and that loop off there, pull them over, and that's basically all you have to do. Cut your working yarn, and then what I do, just to make this even, is I go through into this first peg loop here and pull up a loop like that, and then just crochet that off like that. It just gives a nice secure neat end to that. Okay, so that's our straps finished, so we're ready now just to move on to sewing them on. Right, so we have our dress and the straps, and I've just chosen some little buttons here, so you'll need a couple. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew using your yarn needle from earlier. we're going to sew one end of the strap onto the back of the dress, and the way I like to do that is to take the strap and place it just underneath, so just underneath the edge of the dress at the place where you want the strap to be. So here's the end, just go over, here's the corner here, so I just place it slightly off to one side like that, so it's not right at the end of the dress, but just like that, and then go through from underneath up like that. And again, don't worry about the ends, we can secure those later, and then back stitch through like that. And back up again, and just do these on top of each other, little back stitches, and it just secures it. And then the way I do it is to literally just go along the top of the dress like this, doing a running stitch, which is basically where you go down and then you go back up at the bottom of the last stitch like that, and down, and this secures it really well. Okay, so we've attached the strap at the back of the dress here, and now we're going to, if you hold it forward like this, you can see we have our first strap attached there, and all we're going to do is put a button on the end of this strap here. So what you do is you sew the button onto the end of the strap, and then you can use the natural holes between the stitches as a buttonhole. You don't need to make a separate buttonhole for this, that's why it's so easy. And you do that with both your straps, and your dress is finished. So I'll just finish mine and we can see what it looks like.